Welcome back to KBC News Check, and away from politics, let's protect our kids and keep them busy. We are looking at the protection and most specifically online protection for our kids. Now, if our kids are busy, it brings about a number of issues, and especially on the online platforms. But Cadbury's have launched a Give a Generous Voice story campaign that introduces a homegrown audio library. That could be a game changer, and especially when our kids are at home. And to help me drive this conversation, on my immediate left, we have Lona Kamemba, who is the Senior Category Brand Manager, Chocolates and Biscuits at Cadbury. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Just next to her, we have Luna Odawa, who is a children's psychologist. Karibu sana.
Asante.
And maybe to start us off, this campaign, what exactly does it involve, and how far have you been able to go?
So this campaign started 3 years ago. And the reason we started this campaign is that we did a research and noticed that our kids were reading Western books. And it's very important for kids to read stuff that they can relate to, an environment that they can relate to, people that they can relate to, and that inspires their confidence to make them feel that I can achieve this in life. So we noticed they were reading Rapunzel, or they were reading Beauty and the Beast, and they were reading Snow White. I'm sure our kids have not seen snow unless they've seen it on YouTube or on other platforms. So we saw a need, and parents were telling us there's a need for us to create books that are relevant, that are local, that are done by local Kenyans, for their kids to have relevant stuff to read. So we started the campaign 3 years ago. We've collected stories. So far we have about 100 books in the Cadbury library, and these are free to all kids. Anyone can access and read them. So this year we got a different insight, and it's the fact that life has changed. Parents have become busier and busier. By the time they sit in traffic through the whole day and come back in the evening, you find parents are too tired to instill this reading culture in kids. And what reading does in the evening is that it brings families together. It creates those bonding moments. So we decided as a brand, and through the help of other people, how do we make it easier for parents to continue instilling this culture and to continue creating those bonding moments. So for this year, we are turning those 100 books into audio stories to make family time, story time easier, simpler, but still enable parents to continue with that culture. Yeah.
And Luna, looking at how can we leverage on technology, just like Cadbury is doing, to even protect our kids from what they are seeing? Because a lot of things that are on our phones are just entertainment purposes, and now they have an idea of converting some of the, or lending, somebody can even lend his or her voice and tell stories. What impact could this create for our kids, and especially when they are in the holidays?
Okay, so I know there's always a challenge when it comes to things that are online, but I want to believe that this is well taken care of. And so I'm just looking at it like if you buy an audiobook. So what happens? You are able to download it and listen to it anytime, anywhere. And so what is this doing to your child? Reading to your child, or hearing a child hearing your voice. Let me say it's a parent's voice, for example, or a local voice with a local accent. First of all, they are relating to this voice. They are able to tell that this is something that is happening around us. It's not too foreign. And so they can relate with it. They gain interest in it. When you read to a child, when they listen to, especially the same voice, reading to them over and over again, it makes them gain confidence in them. They are able to repeat some of the words that you say, and so you're growing them cognitively, and at the same time they're growing socially. If it's a mother's voice, for example, for a child who maybe has not grown too much, maybe they're still toddlers, they're still able to feel mom's presence, let's say, or if it's dad's presence in the house, even when dad is away, because that is a familiar voice. It could be a comforting voice. You know, it could be a voice that takes them to sleep. So it's very relatable, and that helps in the growth of the child.
And Lona, looking at Cadbury's, we know Cadbury's for sweet things, chocolates, some snacks. What exactly necessitated you to, there's quite a big shift from making something to eat and then something to feed your brains and your minds.
Yeah. What
exactly necessitated you guys to do that? You are in your 3rd year already.
Yes,
yeah.
We're in our 3rd year, and last year, unfortunately. So Cadbury is a subsidiary of Mondelez International. So Mondelez is a snacking company, and we empower people to snack right. And the thing that comes about empowering people is building communities. So we are a purpose-driven brand. We are a purpose-driven company. And by driving purpose, it means we connect with our communities and try and understand what is it in our communities that is ailing them, and how can we work through other people to help us solve that issue. So Cadbury is a brand that is highly rooted in generosity. And even from the time of the founder of Cadbury, they've always been about communities and families. What can we do to bring families together? And actually our first innovation, which was the cocoa beverages, was founded on the basis that families then were losing their fathers to alcohol. And he needed a drink that doesn't have the same repercussions as alcohol, but still brings families together. And that was the first invention, and after that it was chocolate. So you see, as much as we're a snacking company, we've always been about communities and how do we build communities. So that's how we started this whole campaign around what's the issue in society. We choose to pick learning, because learning is one of the growth pillars in any community. And we decided to create relevant stories, but we're not doing it ourselves. We've done it through Kenyans, and they've been really, really amazing at sending stories. Yeah.
You've talked about over 100 audiobooks. In what fields are we talking about here?
So there are 100 stories. They're just not Kenyan. They've spread across Pan-Africa. We do have Mauritius stories, we have Zambia, we have Tanzania, we have Mozambique, we have all sorts of stories. And when we were doing the selection, so we received hundreds and hundreds of stories every year, but we have to select them. And when we were looking at our selection, all the stories that came about, you will see they're talking about normal issues in society. Like, for example, there's this one, A Season of Butterfly. And the grandmother is basically talking the grandchild through the seasons of a butterfly, from an egg to, a caterpillar, to a pupa, and then it turns into a butterfly. And the other day, I was reading that story to my daughter, and the interest. And you can imagine this is something she's learned, because she sees butterflies, she sees caterpillars, but I don't think she's ever understood that there's that cycle. And that's what we notice about all the books within the library. They do talk about relevant issues, issues that are currently happening. There are stories there about matatus, about a dog that stole meat, and what is the lesson after all that. So I love that the books are by locals, and they're bringing out all these relevant issues in societies that are actually very educative to the kids. Yeah.
And looking at, I got kids as well, and they love watching more than they love listening to. But looking at when I was in primary and high school, we used to meal around a radio that actually it was KBC, because it was the one which had some more or less like the audiobooks that Lorna is talking about. How do we inculcate that reading culture in a field that our kids just want to see and flip from one TikTok to another, from one video to another? How can we inculcate an audio listening platform for our kids? Because Cadbury's have already led the way.
Okay, so children learn by modeling. What they have seen adults do, what they have seen others around them do. I'm sure you went around a radio because others were doing that, and maybe you were required to do that in school, because I remember being forced to listen to a radio lesson in school,
especially in the afternoons.
And so we had to do that. And so right now, I know that most of us are very, very busy, and so we don't have time to just sit around something and listen. But we can actually teach our children to do this. If you set aside some time and say, maybe just before we go to bed, we are going to read a story, or we are going to listen to a story, that becomes part of your culture. So it does not take them away from the other things that they seem to enjoy, but they know that this is part of what we do every evening. Let's say, if mom or dad is not here, then we listen to a book. If they are here, then we read a book. It just becomes part of the family culture. And so they grow up knowing every maybe 5 minutes before, or this is how we tell we are going to bed, that we read a book and then we go to bed. So it's something that you can model as a parent or even a guardian, and the kids pick up. Kids learn very fast.
Lorna, looking at the audiobooks themselves, what languages are you talking about? Are we talking about even African languages? Are we talking about English and Swahili? And are we only targeting kids?
Yeah. So the campaign is to target kids below the age of 10. And that's because literacy, the literacy of our country starts with our ability to read. Something as simple as reading. And basically growing up with my daughter and just watching her, I can remember her starting to read from k, ah, to, and I kept wondering, what is she doing? And then now she can fully take a book and read from start to finish. And I'm like, did I really go through this? I can't remember learning how to read. But it's become so good how kids nowadays are able to read very fast. The library so far, so what we have in the library right now are e-books. They are fully illustrated with all these beautiful pictures, really, really attractive for kids. And literally when you go to the library, you're able to flip. It flips like a book. It's all digital, and it's based on this habit that kids already have. They watch a lot, so we've created them really colorful, very few sentences, and we've tiered them. So kids below the age of 10 years, there are different levels of books that they can read. So the older kids, they have more paragraphs. But the younger ones, it's literally like 3 words. Then the rest is just pictures. So far, we have them in English, majority are in English. We do have Swahili, and Swahili, you'll notice it's divided into 2 versions. So we have some that came from Kenya and some that came from Tanzania. So you will also see there's a lot of mention of Dar es Salaam, maybe they went with their mother to Dar es Salaam, and you can see this is a different culture. We also have books in French, and we have in Portuguese. Yes.
Wow, that is something. How much will it cost someone to access these digital books? And you're talking about lending your voice for audio voice books.
Yeah.
How do somebody get something back, or it's purely free, or exactly how has Cadbury's come in terms of making this?
Yeah. So we've ensured to have a library that is purely free, so that we can give access to all kids. We do understand that you will require bundles, because you see it's an online platform. And I think with us, with the time, we want to evolve to a place where we can have a 0-rated library. So it allows you to completely access the books for free. And also one thing that we did is that we did pay authors' rights to allow us to have these books for 3 years. And that's to allow us to give them completely for free to kids. So last year, we managed to publish about 5,000 books. And those books we distributed to schools for free, and at the same time still drove the library, telling parents and kids you can completely access this for free, you don't have to buy anything, and all that stuff. So we've ensured that the library is free to the kids. It's very simple. Right now we do have ebooks. So the link is www.cadbury.africa. As simple as that. Sometimes you can even scan the QR code. It takes you there faster. But the library is completely free. All you need to do is select an ebook. There's a wide variety. Select an ebook. You'll have the ability to record, because there's a microphone there. You're given up to 15 minutes, so you can do as many takes as possible. You can upload that voice. You can download and share to a minder to read for the kids in case you're not there in the evening or you're not able to be there. And you can also share on WhatsApp, you can share on Facebook, you can share with very many other people, but it is actually your local voice. Yeah.
Okay, and you'll be telling us how you vet this, because somebody might decide to use that platform to talk about something that is not what you guys had maybe agreed on or had anticipated.
So we definitely vet. What we are doing is that we aim to collect about 900 audio voices. They are going to the back end. Currently, we are in partnership with Densu, who are my digital agency, and they're the ones running the library. And I'm also in partnership with CC Africa, and that's a publisher. He's well experienced in terms of publishing. So they usually do the vetting and the auditing. Everything has to be completely relevant for kids, because they're also ensuring the safety of children and what they are getting exposed to. And after that, we will now select the final 85 audio voices.
All right.
Yeah.
Luna, looking at the internet and the space that Kenya has enabled not only kids, but also adults as well. But that is where we have maybe a loophole, because looking at what we've been talking about cybersecurity over the last couple of years, it's been a challenge. And in banking, in pornography, these are things that our kids can be able to view if we are not careful. How do we ensure that we keep our kids updated, just like Cadbury's is doing, but also not intrude in their privacy? Because we are told as parents you need to be checking what your kid is doing on the gadgets. How do we do that without intruding into their privacy? Because the moment that they realize that, and they are more some are more tech savvy than us, they will be able to hide them in a way that we will not be able to see.
And that is very true, and it's happening a lot. Kids are 10 steps ahead of us, and so by the time we get to even check what they watched, it's already gone. But I always say, as a parent, if you can start early, instilling values that you would want your child to grow with, in terms of what is right and what is not right for you, what age is appropriate for such material, and what is it that you cannot be able to digest. If you start early, it becomes easier. But if you want to start at 14, for example, this child maybe, I'm getting children who have watched pornography by age of 4, age of 5. How did they watch that? Because they were left unattended. Nobody was caring about what they were looking at and who they were with when they were exposed to such things. So it's our responsibility as parents and guardians to be able to be involved in the lives of our children as early as possible, especially the formative years, because that's when values are formed. And so if a child knows that whatever is coming on my screen, there's something that is just not right with it, they'll quickly come and tell you, I saw something, or someone exposed me to something that I think is just not right, however young they are. And they'll be able to tell you that because of the values we've instilled and the relationship you have with that child. And so starting from that early age, even with all the firewalls that we will put and all the precautions that we'll put, if it starts from the conscience of the child, it's much easier to handle.
All right.
Yeah.
Back to you, Lorna. This is more or less like a company initiative, like a CSR. And have you maybe thought of partnering with the Ministry of Education or maybe the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development? Because I've noted they also have more or less like their own version of audiobooks or even videos that somebody can be able to access, some more or less more crafted for the kids. Have you thought of partnering with some other people so that we may be able to maybe even help the CBC that is currently underway?
Yeah, I think initially when we started this program, our aim, because we had a 3-year plan, and our aim was to partner with the government, to partner with the education department, but I think even for us, we are first and foremost a snacking company. I don't think we anticipated that we'll be having such good books. The only time I realized is when I gave my daughter a sample of like 10 of the books. We'd printed out 10 of the books, and I gave her, and she went with them to school. And then she came back, the teacher called me to say, oh my God, where can I get these books? Because they're really relevant and they're actually in line with what CBC is actually recommending for parents to buy. That's when I realized we can't sell them. We're giving them out for free. Unfortunately, this is the final year, but I think we'll still keep it open because the library will always still be there, the digital library. Because we still have it open, we are working with Hill & Knowlton, who are our PR agency. We are still open to getting those contacts. Like if we get contacts in terms of the Ministry of Education or any other platform that would like us to partner with them, we are still willing to, print out these books, send them links to the library, just if they can incorporate them in the education system, well and good. I think it's a win-win for everyone.
And I've seen that you've partnered with even content creators like Njue. I've seen Caroline Mutoko.
Yeah.
Tell us about that and what opportunities are there for content creators as well?
Yeah, so the reason we partnered with content creators is because of their power to influence, their powers to change a behavior or ability. And even as we were selecting them, we looked for families and content creators who are already reading with their kids. Like they naturally do it, even before we partnered with them. This is something they are naturally already doing with their kids. They have instilled that reading culture in their kids, and we've seen them, what they do online. So we are partnering with Caroline Mtoko, Njue, I think some Murugi Munyi, I'm forgetting some of the names, but we are partnering with very powerful content creators. And what we love about them is their power to influence. And so far, they've been doing an amazing job in terms of rallying parents to, you can share your voice. This is what you need to do. And they've made it as simple as possible for parents to do that. And even them themselves, if you see some of the videos and content that is going up, it's actually them either recording a voice and sending to a minder to read for the kids to listen, which is really amazing. Or you can see themselves going into the library and actually listening to an audiobook together with the kids.
And Luna, we are looking at the digital space and content creation. We've seen some kids, barely 5 years old, mentioning all the governors in Kenya. We've seen another one reading news very well, who's less than, I think, 10 years old. This is a good platform for them to be able to even not only make something, also express themselves. But there's also cyberbullying that comes with that as well. And also their minds and their brains are not quite advanced for some of the things that, the hard hits that come with the internet. How do we protect such kind of kids who are more than gifted, but they are not quite there yet because of their age?
Parental guidance. Parental guidance is very important because some of those kids are actually exposed to those things because the parents are supporting them, and because they see the abilities they have, the capacity they have. They don't want just that the child to just remain an ordinary child, which is totally excellent. Some of the children do very extraordinary kids. There's some of them actually clearly outliers. So it's okay. They need to be guided. They don't have capacity to deal with the internet, both the positive and negative, because the attention they receive. For example, I remember the one who was doing all the governors, just like in a split of a second. They don't have the capacity to handle the attention now they get.
Yes. Because
I know media houses wanted to interview them, and many people went around them. They don't have that capacity. So they need someone, and the someone has to be someone who's informed. Because I can be a parent with such a child, and I just get very excited that I have an outlier in my house. And so I want them to be exposed to anyone, everything that is around, so that they get more likes and get more famous and popular and all that. But the thing is, they don't know the risk also that comes with that. Because one of the things, and the people on social media can tell you, the exposure can give you a high. But can you remain in that high? Can a child now understand that they no longer give me likes? Can they understand that? They don't have capacity for that. Can they understand that? Can they understand an interview? Like if you call them here, do they understand what this whole nation watching them means? So there's a lot of guidance that is needed, both to the parent and to the child. So people in that space, if they can come up and guide even the parents, because most of the parents, I don't think, also have the capacity for that. If they can guide them on, these are the limits, like for a child, do they need to be totally exposed, because they are minors? Have they given consent for this? What is appropriate for them to be exposed to? What kind of media should they, maybe if it's interview, who should interview them? Who shouldn't interview them? Are they taking so much time away from the other important things they should do, just getting more likes and being popular? Is someone benefiting from this? So all that needs a lot of guidance. Unfortunately, there are not so many, so I don't think there are any policies that surround this. So it's just those few who have come up that someone needs to actually guide them and tell them this is the limit for this child, because they're still a minor, they need to be guided in this way, this is how much exposure that can be given to them. Because not even just cyber, even physically they're not very safe.
Yes.
Yeah, they're not very safe.
I totally concur, because last year I interviewed the 2021 KCPE top student, and I had to interview him live on air while his father was there. I didn't want to put any pressure on a little soul, but he was able to express himself in a good way. But the good thing is that he had his father just next to him, something that we are not seeing in some of the videos and some of the online content that we have.
Yes.
Perhaps do you think that we need to relook at the cyber laws in Kenya? Because the cyberspace has exploded in the last couple of years, but with it a lot of challenges as well, and especially for our minors.
Yes, we do. Technology is evolving faster, I think, than our policies. And so I know there are people who are really checking on this. I know there are people who are behind the rights of children, and they are very active in all this. But I think it's evolving faster than we do. Before we know it, we see a video is viral. Before we know it, something has gone on. And so even as this is happening, I think, yes, the people who are responsible need to actually put some policies in place to protect especially children, because these are people who cannot give informed consent. So I'm taking a video of a child. Has that child allowed me? Yes, even if they allowed me, do they have capacity to allow me? Yeah, because they are minors. Yeah, so it's important that we have that in mind.
And push for, in your audiobooks, maybe this is a good avenue to instill some of the society values and norms, and also try and eradicate some of the things. A good example is in those books that we can talk about, because you're targeting somebody who is maybe 10 and below.
Yeah.
Maybe things like period shame, maybe things like FGM, that mostly happens when kids are just almost that same age. Your audiobooks, the content that they do have, are there some of the things that talk about society vices, societal successes as well?
Yes, just going through a couple of books, then you start seeing those societal and culture coming out. For example, there's a book called Pendo, and Pendo is about this girl who's born dark, yeah, and she's dark-skinned, and all through growing up, she felt like she was different, and she didn't feel like she was beautiful, and she didn't feel like she was pretty. So in that village, they had what is it called, like a fashion show, and she didn't want to participate, and the mother encourages her and tells her, "You're beautiful," and it's all in Swahili, and tells her, "You're beautiful, please try and participate." And when she participates in the whole fashion thing, she actually comes out on top. And then she started realizing, you know, I'm different, I'm dark-skinned, but I'm beautiful the way I am. So I think those are some of the soft cultural things that we would like our kids to start understanding in terms of appreciating themselves as they are. And I think if you just go through the entire library, personally I haven't managed to go through, but every time I read any of those books or I see it being presented, there's always a lesson that we are trying to instill. And it's just our cultural, being proud of who we are, being proud of our cultural differences, and being proud of us being locally the way we are. Yeah.
And Luna, I'm quite sure this is a good avenue because of the digital space that we have in the country, and some of the brilliant activities like from companies like Cadbury's to ensure that we also have the reading culture these days. And is a good avenue also to push some of the issues that are affecting the country. First of all, corruption, road safety, FGM, early marriages. These are some of the things that we need to inculcate into our kids at that age.
Yes.
And the digital space is quite good, because if it's a road accident, this is the best time, and the illustrations you can hear more or less, you're just not reading on the in books. This is the best avenue to do that at this age, but we are not doing that. We are not taking advantage of that. Mostly we are looking at entertainment.
Very true. Entertainment is fun, and anything exciting attracts our
especially
brain.
for kids.
Yeah. Even for adults, anything that is fun will be attracted to it. We run away from pain and get attracted to fun. And so one of the things that, because I have been able to be on the site and see, and even on the launch, I saw how exciting those books are.
Yes.
Honestly, if we create interest as adults, because we are the ones modeling that behavior to our children, if we create that interest, they will easily catch it. We always say that values are caught, they are not taught. So when you model, they are able to see and you know, just emulate or imitate what you're doing. So if they see you as a dad come home and you're like, let's sit down from the earliest age possible, believe me, this will be a culture and it will be passed on. Cultures are passed on. And so if you want this to happen, let's begin. And the basic place to begin is at home, not in school.
Lorna, you've talked about it was a 3-year program, and we almost done for the 3rd year this year.
Yeah, this is the last year.
What are some of the challenges that you faced in the 2 years, let's say 2.5 now, and how you are able to maneuver through them? And why don't you think of maybe scaling it up after you've checked how the 1st year went, the 2nd year went, now we are on the 3rd year?
Yeah.
So
I think our biggest challenge in the 1st year, and we completely didn't know. I think we're a snacking company, and for us, we chose a path that we felt was really relevant, and we wanted to push it. Our 1st year, the biggest issue was around author rights, and especially around copyrights. And I think initially we thought, as a company, we are doing something that is, you know, generosity, and we are driving that, you know, kindness and voluntarily sharing your stories. But I think with time we started learning there's also copyright involved, there's also authors' rights involved, and it brought up a whole issue in Kenya, which is a real problem in terms of are our artists paid their logical rights. But we did partner with Kenya Copyright Board, and we also partnered with the BCLB to just ensure that we were covering the laws in terms of copyright laws. So what we've been doing right from the 1st year is that we do select stories, the final stories, we pay them. We pay the authors, and it allows us to ensure that these 3 years, the books are not being sold, and that kids do have free access. I think by last year now, we scaled it up a bit in terms of printing some of those books, because we realized not every parent has access to internet, and not every parent has a smartphone. So we started thinking, how do we reach those kids? And we did publish books. We might again publish some of those books this year. And what we're doing is that we're giving them to the kids for free. But I think every year has been really amazing in terms of how people share their stories and some of these challenges that we came across. It's about, you know, partnering with people, you know, partnering with Luna in terms of understanding, is our content right? Is our content actually relevant for kids? And are we still ensuring that as much as we're exposing them to all these books, all those books are safe and all that stuff? I think now from next year, we are on another journey. Like I said, the Cadbury brand embodies generosity. We are moving on to something that is really interesting. There are so many things in society that affect us as a community. And we do feel like 3 years is enough. We will still leave the library. We are not going to touch it. We are still open to partnerships. But from next year, watch the space. We are doing something different.
Luna, if my 12-year-old daughter comes and tells me she has been exposed to an ethical online content, it could be a song, could be a video, could be anything, what are some of the steps that I can take as a parent, or what steps should a parent take? Some of the sites are not even Kenyan.
Okay. First of all, you should be concerned and very grateful that your child has told you they think that they have been exposed to something that is not ethical or maybe age appropriate. And so start by having a conversation around it. What does it mean? What did it mean to the child when they saw that content? Because some content is so too memorable that they even start having nightmares.
Yes.
Some of them will start having a lot of thoughts around it. And so you may need to ask yourself, or have a conversation and ask the child, what did this content do to you? And as well as you understanding the content, because sometimes they describe things that you have no idea about, and even if you went to watch, maybe it's no longer available. I've had children who've told me, I saw something and I tried to go back to that site and I couldn't find it. But they are vividly explaining it, and the problem was it was giving them nightmares. And so I had to go back and now like undo what they saw by using some psychological techniques to just help them undo. But having conversations around it, first of all, makes the child not to feel guilty, because I don't think they consented to just seeing it. First of all, because they're minors. So let them, when you have that conversation around it, they will understand that I can tell dad anything, first of all. When I'm in danger, I can run to dad and tell them. And then dad will not, you know, like beat me up just for doing this, but helps me understand that this is what happens. When you tell a young child that the chances of you watching this and then another site pops up that leads you to another site, helps them that understand that then I should not even watch in the first place. And if I've watched, let me stop and have someone help me not to access something else after this. So those conversations are very important. But I'm also hoping that you as a dad has quite some capacity or knowledge on how to lead this conversation. If you're not able to, then take them to someone who can help you navigate that space. Because they need to understand the danger of what they are calling, or what is called unethical, and the magnitude of the danger. So that they're not just thinking, I only watched once, so moving on. So they know that this has a potential bigger danger than just what they saw. So having conversations around it is important. Parents being knowledgeable about the dangers that are around it are also very important. And sometimes not just looking at the issues and not making them bigger than they seem, you know, is also important. So because sometimes a child may tell you, oh, I saw something, and then you make it such a big deal that they think watching anything is just the biggest sin I have ever done, you know. So handle it with the kind of magnitude that it deserves.
All right.
Yeah.
Lorna, what Luna is talking about is quite true in terms of what our kids are seeing, and especially when it comes to pop-ups. And also being in this digital space, coming from confectionery industry, might have posed some of the challenges in terms of cybersecurity?
Yes. I think even as we were starting the digital library, we had to make sure that we've gone through our legal department, to just ensure what does the law say about data protection, how can we make the website more secure for kids in such a way that we're not getting these pop-ups, we are advertising in places that are secure. First, as a company, we don't advertise to kids. We do have a strict policy against that, because we believe kids are not the decision makers, or they don't have the money to do the purchasing. So we only advertise to adults, and that's why even for our library, we do encourage that parents, so that we bring those families together. We do encourage that a parent should be the one to go there, or a minder to go there with the kids to show them. So that, but we've worked really hard behind the scenes to ensure that it's a safe space. The pop-ups don't come up, because we don't want people to click on them, but also the fact that there's an adult who can also start controlling in case they start, you know, going onto other platforms that are not needed. So that's something we really, really check very clearly to ensure it is a safe site.
Luna, as we wrap up, a lot of parents are not discussing this issue of cybersecurity with their kids, and especially when it comes to entertainment, because most of them are geared towards entertainment. I would like you to talk to parents in regards to cybersecurity, because the same way you find parents not talk about issues, corruption, issues, menses, issues, road safety. That is why sometimes we are in a fix when we come to these issues.
Okay, for parents, again, it's not because, sometimes it's not because they don't want to talk about it, but they don't know what to say. Cybersecurity, IT is very complicated so for some people. Sometimes we don't know what to say. We don't know even what to deal with. First of all, we don't even know how kids are bullied online. We don't know what happens when we talk about cyber security. We don't even know what it is. So that lack of knowledge sometimes is to our disadvantage. We don't know what to say. So even when a child comes up is when you're like, oh, you were bullied. How did that happen? You know, who did it? How did they access So because of how we are a bit behind when it comes to this. So it's important that parents get some information. And I know there's a lot of talk about it. There are many times I switch on radio stations and I hear people talking about cybersecurity. So it's important that we get some of this information so that by the time we are talking to our children, we have some information about it. Even if it's not too much, we know where it's coming from. We know how we can, even if it's a little, just how to protect our children from some of these attacks that could be there, so that we can also put measures in place, you know, protective measures even before they get there. So it's important that we get that information. By getting involved in what our children also do, it's also important. What are some of the trends that are happening? I talk to my young adult children and ask them, what are the trends right now? And they tell me, this is what's happening, or this is what's happening. Before I ever knew that Snapchat disappears, I just used to think it's another WhatsApp that I can read information. So they tell you some of these things. And so you are able then, after that, be able to check how are they affecting the young people. Because I work with children a lot, I have to be in that space a lot. So I remain curious most of the time, just asking what's happening, anything that has happened, how did it happen? Then if I don't know, I ask the experts that, how do you deal with such a thing?
Okay.
Yeah.
Final words, Lorna.
I think final words, it's really important for us to instill the reading culture in our kids. And if you've not started early, I think you can start anytime. Yeah, the Cadbury site is a good place to start. I'm not promoting the site, but it's a good place to start, especially we can't continuously keep buying books. And even like Luna said, sometimes we just don't know what books we're supposed to be buying. The Cadbury site is a good place to start. It's linked in very well with the CBC system, because I've seen the CBC system is actually asking parents to buy, you know, like local authors and local stories. So my last words is, let's bring families together. Let's as parents, let us start reading with our kids. Let's make evening time and that bonding time more important. And yeah, just record our voices and have something that your kids can listen to even when you're away.
Indeed, personally, I do support that, because at the end of the day, we really need to be informed. And the digital space is a good platform to begin. Well, that's where we put a cap on KBC News Check. Been with Lorna and Luna. Lorna and Luna, apologies. But the full names is Lorna Kamemba, who is a senior category brand manager at the Cadbury's, more specifically on chocolates and biscuits. And we also had Luna Odawa, who is a children's psychologist. Earlier on, we had a State of the Nation, but now we do thank you so much indeed for keeping it KBC. That's where we put a cap. Thank you for joining us. My name is Njue, and Anwangeshi is our sign language interpreter for this bulletin. I'm giving the baton to the Swahili desk. I see Khalid Abdullahi, who is on standby with Krunzi Mashinani and Tamrini. Thank you so much for watching. Let's continue the conversation on our socials.